Okay, so we'll start lying on our backs. So come to a comfortable position on your back. Whatever that is for you right now, whether that's with knees bent, soles of the feet on the mat, or with legs outstretched. Come to a position that feels supportive for the back body, in particular making sure that the lower back feels comfortable and supported. Maybe knees bent, soles of the feet on the mat might feel helpful for that. Once you're settled in a comfortable, supportive position, come to the breath. So just bring your focus to the breath. Observing the breath in its natural rhythm as it comes in, as it goes out. You're not controlling the breath in any way. You're just practicing that detached but interested observation of your breath. Continue with this practice of observing the breath, and without bringing any sense of control over the breath or control over the process, start to use each inhale to help you notice movement or expansion in the body, any sense of movement or expansion in the body, however subtle or not that might be. Continue with this practice, also bringing in now the practice of using each exhale to notice where there is any sense of the body softening or releasing. Maybe it might be a sense of body releasing towards the ground a little more. Perhaps it might be a sense of tension or holding being released. Again, you're not changing or controlling anything or making anything extra happen. You're just seeing if you can allow the breath to guide you, to show you where expansion is happening or movement is happening in the body on the inhale, where any sense of release or softening is happening in the body on the exhale. However subtle or obvious it might be. As part of this practice of observing, perhaps you might find yourself observing the mind as well. Maybe the mind is distracted away from the process. Maybe also the mind, the ego mind in particular, is trying to get involved in the process, trying to take over that guiding role, trying to show you where you should be finding expansion or where you should be releasing more. Let's see if you can notice if that's happening for you. And again, come back to that practice of observing. So observe, notice if that's happening, see if you can use that observation as an opportunity to encourage the mind to simply come back to focusing on the breath and allow the breath to guide you, to show you where there is expansion movement happening in the body where there is softening and release happening in the body. A few more breaths in this way. Letting that practice go, but staying with the breath. So stay with that focus on the breath in its natural state. See if you can stay as close to the breath as you can. And if you want to set an intention for your practice today, then take a moment to do that now. Now, if you haven't already, bend your knees and bring soles of the feet to the mat. If it feels okay for the body, have your feet close together. So ideally with the sides of the feet, the inner edges of the feet alongside each other, soles of the feet still into the mat. On your next exhale, see if you can allow the shoulders to soften and release down into the mat a little more. And you could place your arms, if it feels comfortable now, if you haven't already, into that mountain pose position where the arms are out at a slight angle from the body, backs of the hands resting on the floor, elbow creases up towards the ceiling. Having them placed in this way in order to facilitate and to support the shoulders in continuing to find that sense of releasing down into the ground. You can either stay here, or if it feels okay for the body, use your next exhale to draw your knees out to the sides, right knee to the right, left knee to the left, coming to rest on the outer edge of each foot. And then you can just gently bring the soles of the feet to rest together. Any discomfort in the lower back, see how it feels to take the feet a bit further away from the body. If it still doesn't feel right in the lower back, if it doesn't feel comfortable, you can bring the knees back together. Continue to find that sense of the shoulders softening and releasing down into the mat. And now taking some time here to come back to the practice we started with, of being with the breath in its natural state and using the breath to help you notice and observe any sense of movement or expansion in the body on the inhale, any sense of softening or release in the body on the exhale. Just taking a moment now to come back to that practice. Okay, and then letting that practice go. If you have the knees out to the sides in your Baddha Konasana pose, you can use an inhale now to draw the knees back together. We'll make our way up to sitting in Sukhasana. So come up in whatever way feels right for you in your practice right now. So you might roll to one side and push yourself up from there. Or if it's a part of your practice and you're feeling like you want something with the energy being a bit more dynamic right now, you could take a rock and roll along the spine. Only do this if it's part of your practice. I'm not kind of actively guiding you through that movement right now, and come up in that way. So we'll meet in Sukhasana, sitting with legs crossed. If you know it's helpful for you to have some height underneath the sit bones to allow, when I say the knees to release, that's the kind of, that's the bit, the kind of physical movement that's noticeable if you take some height. So maybe you can, actually, it's the colour of my leggings, perhaps you can't see it that well, but so I'm sitting here without height, and then, I don't know if you can see, but if I take some height, my knees release down further. But actually, what we're really doing is finding a bit more release in the hips. It's the hips that are letting go a bit more with a bit more height under the sit bone. So take that height if that feels helpful in releasing the hips a bit more, even if it feels fine sitting directly on the ground. If you haven't done before, then, and particularly if you're watching this on recording, you can hit pause, grab some height underneath you. Whenever I'm suggesting either variations to poses or exploring using props, that isn't code for saying if you can't do it the proper way, try it this way. It's a genuine invitation to explore with curiosity. How does it feel different if I use this prop here? Or, you know, how does this feel different or the same if I take this variation here? You know, the more you're open to that, the more you'll learn about your body as you practice. Okay, so in your Sukhasana, just have a little bit of a wriggle on the sit bones. And take a few breaths now where you're using the breath to help you to find your way into the pose. So on your next inhale, having a sense of inhaling up the spine, finding a bit more length in the spine. At the top of the inhale, can you find a sense of the chest lifting a little here? As you exhale, can you find a sense of the tops of the shoulders softening down, coming all the way down through to the sit bone? So there's a kind of a sense of the sit bone softening and spreading, rooting, connecting with the surface beneath a bit more. Continue like this at your own pace of breath, using each inhale to find a bit more length in the spine, find a bit more lift and a sense of space, expansiveness in the chest, using each exhale to cultivate a little bit more of a sense of softening and release of the body. And that softening and release being a sense of the body releasing down towards the ground a little more. You might find that this creeps in naturally, but in any case, if it feels helpful, you might explore lengthening the inhale and the exhale for a few rounds here now. Still easeful breaths, but maybe taking a bit more time over each breath, giving you a bit more space to explore that sense of length, expansion, spaciousness on the inhale, to explore that sense of softening and release on the exhale. Okay. Take one more inhale. See if at the top of that inhale, you can have that sense of the chest lifting. Have your hands resting on your knees. And as you next exhale, have a sense of hinging from the hips. And what I mean there really is a sense of keeping the sit bones firmly rooted, and explore drawing the chest forwards a little here. So at the same time, see if you can have a sense of the shoulders drawing back and down, creating space for the chest to draw forward. A little like we would if we were practicing something like Cobra, or a little like what goes on when we're doing our cat-cows, or specifically our cow parts of that movement. Okay, so on your next inhale, see if you can bring a bit more lift to the chest. So you're still drawing forwards a little bit here, but On the inhale, you're bringing a bit more lift to the chest, maybe the shoulders draw back and down a bit more. And then as you next exhale, can the chest draw forwards a bit more, as if you're trying to the chest is trying to reach the opposite side of the room that you're in. And it'd be very different for different bodies, but if you find that you're coming forward so much that you feel like you're going to topple forwards, or it feels like the sit bones are kind of moving away from the ground, it might feel helpful to bring your hands down onto the ground in front of you, maybe having the fingertips sort of tented, if that feels helpful, and use the press of the fingertips and the thumbs or the hands into the ground to help you keep drawing the shoulders back and down so that you've got space for the chest to draw forwards. And you can just keep working in this way. So you folding forwards might not look anything like this. It might look like this, but it's about how it feels for you. So what you're wanting to feel is on each inhale that you're continuing or revisiting that lift of the chest, so that there's a sense of keeping the front body long and spacious here. On each exhale, you're exploring whether the chest might draw forwards a little more. And what you're exploring there really is that release of the hips that I was talking about just now with Sukhasana, and you're also keeping length in the spine. So it's a kind of a wave-like movement of inhaling a bit more lift in the chest, exhaling, maybe the chest draws forward. And you get to a point where there's not a feeling of physical movement, but can you still on each inhale keep finding that lift in the chest? On each exhale, keep finding that sense of the chest releasing forwards. Keep the sit bones grounded. If you've got your fingertips or hands on the ground, then that push of fingertips in the ground can also help keep the sit bones grounded here. Last few breaths. As much as anything, it's not about trying to get anywhere, but see if you can really kind of find or tune into that sense of like a wave-like movement of inhaling, chest lifting a little, exhaling, drawing forwards, inhaling, lifting the chest, exhaling, chest drawing forwards. So you're really letting the chest leave. Lovely. And feel free, if you kind of feel like you're holding yourself back, if you feel like, oh, I can go further forward, just try and keep that integrity. So you're not kind of just letting the hands slide forwards and just kind of using any inherent flexibility around the hips to just like kind of dump yourself forward. Okay, great. So start to draw yourself back up now. You can use an inhale for that. And as you do that, try and keep that sense of lift in the chest. So rather than kind of just like rounding the spine and coming up like this, you're keeping the chest drawing forwards even as you draw yourself all the way back up. Hopefully that feels like it makes sense in the body. Great. Just checking. Does that all feel like it makes sense in the body? Please do say, give me a wave, and I can try and find other ways of putting it across. Okay, great. Okay, so coming now to sit on your heels at the back of your mat. We'll only be sat on heels for a moment. We're setting up for an extended child's pose here. So once you come onto your heels, then again, as long as it feels okay for the body, take the knees out wider. So for me, about mat width apart is about right. It might be something different for you, but whatever feels comfortable here, so you've got a bit more openness around the hips. Okay, so don't do it yet, but in a moment we're going to come forward into an extended child's pose, something that we do very often in our practice. But what I'm inviting you to do this time around is to take that same kind of approach that we've just used in our forward fold from Sukhasana into this child's pose. So you might start with hands on the knees. Take an inhale, see if you can bring that lift to the chest. Sorry, just before we start, if you know it's helpful for you to have height between thumb and heels in child's pose, then grab that now if you can and take that height between thumb and heels. if you possibly can, have enough height so that you will keep that connection of the bum onto the height that you've placed when you come forwards into your child's pose. Okay, so hands resting on the knees if that feels okay. On your next inhale, see if you can, at the top of the inhale, bring a bit more lift to the chest. As you exhale, can you have that same sense of the chest drawing forwards as we explored in Sukhasana just now? And it might be that already as you do that, you need to then bring your hands to support you in the same sort of way as you did in Sukhasana. As you inhale, can you bring a bit more lift to the chest? As you exhale, drawing the chest forwards as if it's trying to reach the other end of the mat. And again, just keep the hands in a place that supports you, but don't be tempted to take the hands out further to start leading you. So you're not doing this. You're keeping the hands close enough to the body so that you can use the press of the hands into the mat or the fingertips into the mat to help draw the shoulders back as you draw the chest forward. So find that wave-like movement, inhaling, chest lifting, exhaling, drawing forwards. Eventually, you might find that coming onto the palms of the hands feels more helpful. Maybe eventually, as you draw forwards further, it's forearms. So as much as you can, try and feel like the chest is leading until eventually you bring forehead to the mat. Or maybe you have some height under the forehead. If you don't have height available and you feel like you need it, then you can place forearms underneath the forehead. If you haven't got forearms underneath the forehead, then slide, once you've got your forehead resting, slide the hands away from you, fingers spread wide. And as long as it feels comfortable for the body, particularly around the shoulders, then stay active through the hands. So see if you can find that horseshoe shape on the hands we talked about before and actively press that into the mat. So the arms are really active here. If that feels uncomfortable around the shoulders or anywhere else for that matter, then you could have forearms resting on the mat and be more relaxed with the hands. Great. Come back to the breath. And see if you can come back now to that practice of observing the breath in its natural state. And through your observation of the breath, observing where there is expansion, movement in the body on the inhale, where there is a sense of softening or release on the exhale. So you're not using the breath to kind of, it's not that you're, say, looking for where that should be, you're letting the breath guide you to help you notice. And some of those might be in subtle places that you might not normally notice, or it might be obvious ones. But seeing if you can really tune into the natural expansion movement that happens in the body on the inhale to the natural sense of softening and release that happens in the body on the exhale. And perhaps part of what you observe is how this feels different, how it feels similar to when you were observing the body with the breath in this way whilst you were lying on your back. Okay, bringing your hands alongside your head now, palms facing down. Press the mat away from your hands as you inhale and draw yourself back up. See if you can keep a little bit of a sense of the chest drawing forwards and up, so maybe come up a bit more mindfully if you can, gradually creeping your hands back towards you. So it feels rather like when you were coming out of that forward fold in Sukhasana. Lovely. Come back to your Sukhasana. Take a moment to settle on the sit bones. Take a few breaths to settle into the pose, just as we did before, inhaling up the spine, lifting the chest, exhaling, Softening of the shoulders all the way down through to the sit bones at your own pace. Take a few more breaths in this way. Taking one more inhale now. At the top of the inhale, finding that lift in the chest. As you exhale, start to draw belly and chest round towards the right. So try and keep the belly and the chest in line with each other. Don't let the chest and the upper back turn further round and leave the belly and the lower back behind. So even if that means that it feels like you're taking a much tinier movement than you might if you were to let the upper part of the body swing round, you're not trying to get anywhere. We're trying to encourage deeper abdominal muscles and lower back muscles to work for us here. If it feels okay, you can bring your right hand to rest by your right hip. Keep it as close as you can, but resting on the ground, fingertips or palm of the hand, whatever feels right. You can use a little bit of a press of the right hand into the mat to help keep the left sit bone really rooted here. Come back to the breath. So you're again inhaling up the spine, finding that lift in the chest. And then as you exhale, can you let the shoulders soften down a little more? Feel that softening coming all the way down through to the sit bones. Maybe there's even a little bit of a sense of, or scope for the hips to release a bit more. Or at least an observing of any kind of holding, extra holding that's come into the hips as you've twisted that doesn't need to be there. Last few breaths. Okay, and then inhale back to center. Take a few rounds of breath here to settle back in the center, same as before. Inhaling up the spine, exhaling, softening down through to the sit bones. Take one more inhale, bringing that lift to the chest, and then as you exhale, drawing round towards the left, so belly and chest stay in line with each other as much as they can. You can bring your left hand to rest by the hip. The right hand's resting wherever feels comfortable. It might be on the right knee, it might be on the left knee, somewhere in between, whatever feels right, so that you can still bring a sense of release to that right shoulder, that it's not kind of, what you're not doing is kind of bringing the right hand round here. You know, that if you can see me right now, then, you know, if I bring the right hand here, that's just showing that I'm trying to hurry round to the left here, which isn't what we're trying to do. Much better for me to have the right hand over here on my right knee so that I've got space for the right shoulder to draw down. So I'm finding as much broadness across the chest as I can. Another kind of telltale sign that maybe at least the ego mind is still trying to get, is still thinking that the point here is to kind of get as far round to the left as possible, is if you find that your head, your gaze is round to the left. So just notice where the head is, where the gaze is right now. And can you, if it's further round to the left, if the chin is further round to the left than your body is, can you bring the head back to center so the chin is in line with the center of the body? And just notice, like, if you needed to do that, notice what comes up. Does that feel, you know, uncomfortable in the mind in any way? Last few breaths. Lovely. Inhale back to center. Okay, so we'll come into a downward dog variation, as in there are a few variations available. So decide which feels right for you. If you take one of the variations and decide it's not right for you after all, come to a different one. So either you can come to an extended child's pose, but this time with knees closer together, so a more kind of traditional style if you like, If you're doing that, invitation to kind of take that same approach as we took before of coming into the child's pose. So there's one variation. Or you can take downward dog on the mat. Or you can take downward dog against the wall. If there are any of those variations, I mean, I know I've kind of gone on about downward dog against the wall quite a lot, so you're probably familiar with it, but if you haven't been in the sessions when I've talked about it and you want any specific guidance on it, just come off mute and let me know, or give me a wave now. Happy to just run through that. Right. So come into whatever variation is right for you now. Take your time. Super. If you're in downward dog on the mat or at the wall, see if you can find that length in the side body by lifting the hips high, or if you're at the wall, drawing them back, and at the same time pressing either the ground away from you if you're on the mat, or the wall away from you if you're at the wall, with your hands. If you're in extended child's pose, you could have the hands active, or you can have them passive, but either way, see if you can use the breath to tune into that sense of length in the side body. Last few breaths here. Can you come back to that observation of the breath, using the breath to observe movement, expansion in the body on the inhale, to observe softening and release in the body on the exhale. And remember, that might be about noticing a sense of the body releasing into or towards the ground. Great. If you're in downward dog on the mat, start to walk your hands back towards your feet to come into a standing forward fold. You could also make your way to forward fold via a downward dog if you're in extended child's pose. If you're at the wall, or you simply prefer to come via standing, then feel free to come into your forward fold by coming to standing and then hinging from the hips, drawing the chest forwards and down. So we'll all meet in a standing forward fold. Sukhasana, this is called. Right. On your next, so let's use a few rounds of breath now to feel our way into the pose. So as you next inhale, can you have a sense of the hips maybe drawing up just a little bit more, maybe navel towards spine to help with that. So that then as you exhale, there's a sense of the upper body maybe releasing a little bit more. Head is hanging heavy, shoulders are released. Can you also use your exhales to have a sense of, imagining like you're breathing out through your feet. And as you breathe out through your feet, the breath kind of continues down into the ground, a little like roots. So you're bringing full awareness to the connection that your feet have with the ground, feeling rooted through the feet, so that it's from that place of rootedness, you can then have that sense of inhaling up the legs all the way out to the hips, hips lifting high. Come to the breath. Take a few rounds of breath now in its natural rhythm. Coming back to the practice of observing the breath and observing, using that to observe movement, expansion, to observe softening and release. So this is now not about telling your body to do these things, but about observing where this is happening in the body. Anyway, without you doing anything more than you're doing right now. Bring your hands to your hips. On your next inhale, hinge from the hips as you draw the chest forward and all the way up. Exhale, release the hands down. Come to step to the top of your mat. Come into your mountain pose. Take a moment to settle into your mountain pose. Maybe using that sort of mental checklist, starting with the feet being firmly rooted, evenly weighted. Checking in around the hips, the pelvis, so tailbone drawing down, navel towards spine. Checking in around the heart space, so can the shoulders draw back and down? Can you bring that, that placement of the arms so the elbow creases are facing forwards? Take a few rounds of breath as to settle into the poses we have with some of the other poses so far. So using each inhale to see if you can have a sense of inhaling up the spine, culminating in that lift in the chest. Using each exhale to see if you can find that sense of the tops of the shoulders softening down and feel like that breath is coming all the way down the body, all the way down through to the feet and beyond. So that softening and release is also about releasing down towards the ground. Take a few more breaths in that way. Let that go. Come back to, let the breath come back to its natural rhythm. You might have kind of actually extended the breath as you were tuning into the pose. So let the breath be in its natural rhythm. Just a moment here to come back to the practice of allowing the breath to show you where the natural expansion or movement is in the body, where the natural sense of softening and release is in the body. Maybe noticing how this feels different or how it feels similar to other positions we've been in where we've observed the body and the breath in this way so far. Now bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. If you haven't already, then just closing the eyes or softening the gaze for a moment. If you set an intention at the start of your practice, then take a moment to recall that now. Opening the eyes now or lifting the gaze. On your next inhale, either sweep your arms up or bring hands to the hips. Exhale, fold forward. So we're coming into our forward fold. On your next inhale, come to a halfway lift. Shoulders draw back, chest draws forward. As you next exhale, come back down to your forward fold. Bend your knees as much as you need to so you can plant both hands in front of, slightly wider than the feet. Use your next inhale to see if you can bring the weight forwards into the hands a bit more, maybe even a sense of pressing the mat away from you with the hands. And then as you exhale, draw the right foot back, draw the back knee down to come into a low lunge. Come up onto your fingertips. And then from there, we're going to just so press the mat away from you with the fingertips. So you're using the hands to support you here. And then just start to kind of heel toe the front foot, so the left foot over to the left a bit more. So it's more towards the sort of the edge of the mat. So that then you can start to press down more fully into the right fingertips now. So you can lift the left hand up and bring the left hand down onto the mat to the inside of the left foot. So the left foot is to the outside of the left hand now. Once you've moved the left hand, you can press that down into the mat to the left hand and bring the right hand into place. So it's in line with the left foot and the left hand. So you've got, hopefully you can see that here. We're in our lizard lunge, basically. So you've got left foot and both hands in line with each other, with the left foot on the outside of the left hand. Okay. And once you're there, you can either have palms of the hands pressing into the mat, or if it feels okay if you come up onto fingertips, or if it starts to feel a bit much staying on fingertips for too long, you could come up onto fists. Advantage of being on fingertips or fists, or in fact, if you have blocks, you could put blocks On your next inhale, see if you can have that sense of the chest lifting a little at the top of the inhale, bringing awareness to a sense of length in the whole of the front body. As you exhale, can you find a sense of the hips, the pelvis releasing a little bit more? Right. You can either stay here, check that you are feeling like you've got some opening around that back groin. It doesn't need to be a maximum stretch, but it feels like there's some opening happening. So you can either stay here, or if you want to explore a bit more opening around the front groin, you might explore on an exhale, drawing the left knee over to the left a bit more. So you're coming onto the outer edge of the left foot. So you're really pressing the mat away from you with your hands to help keep you supported, and also to help keep that sense of shoulders drawing back and down so the chest can lift. Lovely. It depends on the body. This can feel very welcome to find that opening. Just work kindly and consciously with the body so you're not overdoing it. Okay, if you've got the knee out to the left, then use an inhale to draw it back in. Right. And then bring palms of the hands to the mat. Press down through the right hand so that you can then inhale, lift the left hand up, take it back to the outside of the left foot, and then you can heel toe the left foot over to the right a bit, so that then the left hand can be on the mat and you're back in something that's more like your normal low lunge. Press the mat away from you with your hands if you can a little more. Make sure the back toes are tucked. On your next inhale, draw the back knee up. And then as you exhale, draw the front foot back and come into a downward dog. So as you draw the front foot back, you're also drawing the hips up and back, so pushing the mat away from you with the hands. Either stay in downward dog for a few breaths, or exhale, knees to the mat, thumb back to the heels, coming to an extended child's pose. Observe the breath. See if you can come back to the practice of observing through the observation of the breath. You're observing expansion, movement in the body on the inhale. You're observing release and softening in the body on the exhale. Okay, we're going to prepare to step through with the right foot. So we're coming to lunge on the other side. So you can either do that from downward dog or from all fours. So come to whichever your position is going to be. Don't step through yet. Take a moment once you're in your starting position to just move the right hand over towards the left a little. So you've already got the space created for the right hand of the right foot when it does step through to come to the outside of the right hand. Okay. Take an inhale to prepare. Option if you're in downward dog to raise the right leg up into a three-legged dog. And then as you exhale, draw the right foot forwards. Shuffle it into place. If you come from downward dog, you can use an exhale to draw the back knee down there. Once you're in place, or maybe it helps to come up onto fingertips first to get into place, but certainly then come up onto fingertips, or onto fists, or onto blocks, bricks if you have them. That can feel a helpful way to bring some more space. So you're in your lizard lunge on the other side. Take at least a few breaths with the right sole of the foot fully on the mat. And then either stay with that, or you might explore drawing the right knee over to the right. It might feel very different one side to the other. So just approaching it gently, kindly. Super. Okay, so keep that sense of pressing the fingertips or the hands into the surface beneath to help keep a sense of the shoulders drawing back and down, so you're bringing that lift to the chest, keeping awareness of that length in the front body. Lovely. Okay, if you've got your right knee out to the side, draw it back in. Bring palms of the hands to the mat. Really press into the left hand. So on an inhale, you can then pick the right hand up, take it to the outside of the right foot. Then you can just heel toe the right foot towards the left a little, so the right hand can come back into its more normal place to the outside of the right foot. Tuck the back toes. Inhale the back knee up. As you exhale, step the back foot forward, as many steps as you need to come to your forward fold. Few breaths in forward fold. Let the breath lead you. So see if you can again come back to that practice of observing expansion on the inhale, observing release on the exhale. The last few breaths here, and if it feels open to you, then you might lengthen the exhale a little, and whatever softening and release you've observed in the body on the exhale, maybe you can cultivate that a little bit more on those lengthened exhales, if that feels good. On your next inhale, come to a halfway lift. Exhale back down to your forward fold. Inhale, hinge from the hips, draw the chest forwards and all the way up. You can sweep the arms up or you can have hands on the hips. Exhale, bring palms of the hands together in front of the heart. Release the arms alongside you. Make your way down to sitting. If you want to take a flow to get there, feel free to in your own time. We're going to meet on the mat with legs outstretched in front of us. If you have a little bit of height you can take under the bum, I'd recommend it. It can really help to keep some length in the lower back, to keep us from dumping weight into the lower back. Great. Bit of a wriggle on the sit bones. On your next inhale, can you have that sense of inhaling up the spine, and at the top of the inhale, the chest lifting a bit more. As you exhale, can the shoulders draw back and down to create space for the chest to stay lifted, and then bring your hands alongside your hips, fingertips and thumbs into the ground. So fingers are facing towards the toes, thumbs are back behind you. Use the press of the fingertips and thumbs into the ground to help you keep drawing the shoulders back and down. And now actively push out through the heels to get the legs really active. Keep the heels in contact with the mat though. So if you find that in doing so, it feels like you've still got a bit more to go to kind of get the legs fully active, then try pushing out through the balls of the feet as well. You're wanting to get the legs active so it really feels like the hips are working for you here, kind of hugging into the midline of the body. Come to the breath, inhaling up the spine, finding lift in the chest. Exhaling, softening through the tops of the shoulders all the way down through to the sit bones. So it feels like the hips, although they're hugging into the midline of the body to support you, it also feels like they're kind of softening and releasing down a bit more as part of your rootedness. Lovely. Exhale, release, roll the shoulders forward. Let the legs relax. Maybe lean back onto the hands for a moment, have a bit of a shake and wriggle of the legs. Okay, so keeping the left leg out long in front of you. Doesn't need to be super active right now, but just keeping it out long. Take hands behind the right thigh. Inhale, draw the right knee in towards you. So sole of the right foot is on the floor, close-ish towards the bum, wherever it feels comfortable. And then use an exhale to draw the right knee out to the right. So you come to rest on the outer edge of the foot, or it might even feel like you're coming to kind of rest on the top of the foot. So you want the right leg to feel like it is released down as much as possible. So if it feels like there's lots of holding going on here, then if you can, try and get some support underneath the right thigh, the right knee, so it feels like it's a bit more released. Ideally, you want this to feel like it's part of your rootedness here. You can kind of, it's there, you can almost forget about it, if you know what I mean. Not forget about it, but you know that it's serving you as part of your rootedness here. Push out actively through the left heel now, so you're getting active through the left leg. Keep the heel in contact with the ground. Check in with the sit bones, that you're feeling rooted through the sit bones. Maybe see if you can really have a sense of the left hip kind of rotating as it's sort of drawing down. So it's that kind of out and down action of the left hip to really keep the left sit bone rooted. Take an inhale, bring a lift to the chest. And then as you exhale, start to draw around towards the left. So as if the belly and the chest are trying to point directly towards the left knee. You can have hands or fingertips on the floor, either side of the left leg to support you, and also to help you keep bringing the shoulders back and down, so you're keeping a lift in the chest even as you're drawing round. So it might feel like a really tiny movement that you're taking here. It's a subtle kind of movement. Come back to the breath, inhaling up the spine, lifting the chest, exhaling, shoulders releasing down all the way down through to the sit bones. You can either stay here or you can explore folding forwards from here. So if you're exploring the folding forwards, think about that kind of wave-like movement that we explored earlier when we were folding forwards from Sukhasana. So as you inhale, you're bringing lift to the chest. And then as you exhale, you're exploring the chest, drawing in the direction of the left toes. And then when you get to the next inhale, you're re-exploring or refinding that sense of lift in the chest, so you're bringing spaciousness and length to the front body. As you exhale, maybe the chest draws towards the toes a little more. Inhale, lift in the chest. Exhale, maybe chest draws forwards. Keep the sit bones rooted. So that same quality that you brought to Sukhasana earlier, you're not trying to get anywhere. Keep the hands close to the body. So yeah, that's great, Jill. Lovely. So that you can keep drawing the shoulders back and down, let the chest lead, even if it feels like you're not getting anywhere, like it feels like there's hardly any movement. That's fine. It's more about, we're still in a gentle twist here over towards the left. So you're working with these kind of deeper muscles, and you're working on finding that length in front body and in back body. Super. Okay, if you've been folding forwards, then draw yourself back up. On an inhale, there's a sense of the chest drawing forward and up at the same time. Great. Exhale, release. Super. Okay, so if you haven't already, use another inhale to draw the body back round to center, so you're no longer revolved round towards the left. Then use your next inhale to draw your right knee back in, and then exhale the right leg out long. If you want to lean back on the hands for a moment and take any movement with the legs or a pummeling of the legs, anything that feels good, feel free to do that. Super. We'll come to the other side. The right leg stays out long, hands behind the thighs to draw the left knee in. And then using an exhale to take the left knee out to the side. So again, If it feels helpful, you can have some support under the left knee or the left thigh, so that you feel like, as far as possible, that feels like it's releasing down. You know, don't worry too much if it doesn't feel like that at all. You know, maybe it's something to come back to if you were to practice this again. Like, just be ready with lots of support and height here, and notice how that feels different. Push out actively through the right heel, so you're active through the right leg. Inhale up the spine, bringing a lift to the chest. Exhale, drawing belly and chest in the direction of the right knee. So it's as if the belly and the chest are trying to point to the right knee. You can have hands either side of the leg, keep them close to the body so that you can press down through fingertips or through hands to help draw the shoulders back and down to keep bringing that lift in the chest. Check that you feel like you're actively drawing that right hip down so the right sit bone is feeling rooted. Come back to the breath for a few rounds, in particular using the exhales to cultivate a sense of softening and release down through the body all the way down through to the sit bone, so that just as when we were in staff pose, even though the hips are working very hard for us here, particularly that right hip is working hard for us right now, can you still cultivate a sense of softening and releasing down a bit more? So there's a little less kind of surface effort going on. You can either stay working with the breath here, or you can explore the forward fold from here. So if you're doing that same quality, same wave-like quality as before, working with the breath, inhaling, bringing lift to the chest, and being conscious of that length and spaciousness in the front body. And then as you exhale, chest drawing towards the toes. So try and have a sense of the shoulders drawing back to create space for the chest to kind of draw through the shoulders almost. On each inhale, bring a bit more lift to the chest. So you're keeping that length in the front body. Exhale, maybe the chest releases towards the toes a bit more. And just notice what's going on. Very easy here for many of us, for the ego mind to get involved and think, oh, I can reach the toes, or I can get belly towards the thigh, or, you know, and to mistake what we're doing for being that kind of ambition. And of course, it's not at all. This is the way we're approaching. There are so many different ways to approach any pose that we take in yoga. And today we're working with, this is called Janu Sirsasana. We're working with it to cultivate a sense of openness and length in the front body, and keeping that sense of length in the back body as well, to encourage the hips to release. Last few breaths wherever you are, stay with the breath. Great. If you're folding forwards, then use an inhale to draw yourself back up. So try and keep that sense of the chest drawing forwards even as you're coming up. So there's that sense of length in the front body as you come up. Great. And then use another inhale to draw the body back round to center. Use one more inhale to draw the left knee back in, and then you can exhale the left leg out long. Have one more shake out. And then make your way down onto your back. So we're coming towards Shavasana. We will just take, so if you're thinking, I mean, weather's quite nice now. Well, it is nice and warm where I am right now. But if you're thinking of putting socks on, then you, for Shavasana, you might want to pause on that. We're just going to take a brief bridge pose before we come to Shavasana. So start by just lying on your back and hugging knees into the chest for a moment, inviting some release around the lower back, whether that's by being in stillness, focusing each exhale on release of the lower back into the mat a bit more, or maybe it feels good to take a rock from side to side so you feel like you're massaging the lower back out on the mat, whatever feels right for you. Okay, now bring soles of the feet to the mat, feet hip width apart, arms alongside the body, palms facing down. Press the feet down into the mat and use an inhale to start to lift the lower back, or lift the hips up towards the ceiling. So the lower back draws up off the mat, and then gradually the rest of the spine follows vertebrae by vertebrae. So you can pause on each exhale to refine that sense of rootedness down through the feet, and also to find a bit more release of the shoulders down into the mat. And then on each inhale, focusing on that drawing of the hips up towards the ceiling. The more you do that, you might find that you can start to focus as well on a sense of the tailbone lengthening away from you here. Keep pressing down into the feet to support you and to get the glutes really active in supporting the hips as they draw up towards the ceiling. We'll pause here for a few breaths if you want to take any variations that are familiar to you in bridge pose. So for example, tucking shoulders underneath you, interlacing the fingers and pressing the sides of the hands down into the mat to help support that lift of the hips too. Feel free to do that. Wherever you are in your bridge pose now, see if you can come back to that observation of the breath, using the observation of the breath to notice expansion and movement in the body on the inhale, to notice softening and release in the body on the exhale. If you've got shoulders tucked underneath or fingers interlaced, then release that now. And then use, if you can, a lengthened, controlled exhale to slowly replace the spine back onto the mat. If you want to take your time to get there, if once you're there you want to take one more hug of the knees into the chest, feel free to do that. And then as and when you're ready, start to make your way into your Shavasana. And coming to whatever position feels right for you now, where you can feel like the ground is supporting you so that you can let go of effort as much as possible. As you settle into your Shavasana, bringing your focus back to the breath, and using your Shavasana today to continue with that practice of observing the breath, not controlling it in any way, simply observing the breath and using that observation of the breath to help you notice the natural movement or expansion that happens in the body on each inhale, however subtle that might be, to notice the natural softening and release that happens in the body on the exhale, again, however subtle that might be. Knowing that this space is held for you while you do that. starting now to bring some deeper breaths into your body. Slowly bringing some movement back to your body, maybe wiggling fingers and toes, perhaps rotating wrists and ankles. Taking any movements now, any stretches, sighs, anything that feels good in the body. And taking your time now to make your way back up to a comfortable seated position. Having your eyes closed or your gaze soft as you do that. Once you're there, take a moment, if you set an intention at the start of your practice, to recall that intention now. Bringing palms of the hands together in front of the heart and taking a moment to be grateful to yourself for making the time for this practice today. And a moment for us to be grateful that we have this practice of yoga available to us and that we have this means of connection available, which means that we can gather and practice together in this way. And if you want to, you could take a moment now to think of anything else that you're grateful for right now. Bowing your head towards your fingertips. Namaste. Releasing whenever you're ready. Thank you guys, lovely to practice with you.